Hello, my name is Chelsea Dumond, AFSP's Manager of Public Policy, Events, and Projects. And on behalf of everyone at AFSP in the Public Policy Office, I would like to thank you for joining us today as we honor just a few of the individuals who have gone above and beyond to support and advocate for suicide prevention and mental health over the past year. Throughout today's event, we will share some remarks from members of Congress, including Senator Kristen Sinema of Arizona, Representative Tom Cole of Oklahoma, Representative Debbie Dingell of Michigan, and Representative Anthony Gonzalez from Ohio. Finally, we will close out the event with a keynote presentation by David Wasserman, who will discuss the upcoming election cycle and the outlook for mental health and suicide prevention support within Congress. Joining me today to present our awards will be Melissa D'Arabian, Chair of the AFSP National Public Policy Council, Bob Gebbia, AFSP's CEO, Nancy Farrell, Vice Chair of the National Public Policy Council, and finally, presenting the Innovations in Suicide Prevention Awards, we will have Dr. Christine Moutier, AFSP's Chief Medical Officer, and Dr. Paul Kivala joining us on behalf of the American College of Emergency Physicians. Now, to kick us off, we have some inspiring remarks from U.S. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell of Michigan.
Hello, I'm Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. It's difficult, but an important reason that we're all coming together today. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all the work that you do to achieve a world without suicide. Your advocacy helps us bring conversations together surrounding suicide and mental health, bring it out of the darkness, and have people not be afraid to talk about what's happening to themselves or to their families. Sadly, for many of us here, we have and remember those that we've lost to suicide. And we're here because we can no longer afford to sweep these kinds of issues under the rug. We need to talk about people's feelings. We need to talk about that people get desperate and they get scared, and there are mental health issues, and they need to be addressed in all facets of society. But they get overlooked because we're afraid to have the conversations. People are embarrassed to admit it. They're afraid of what might happen to themselves. This issue is personal for me, but while many don't acknowledge it, it's a personal issue for most of us. I lost my sister. Too many of us have a friend or a family member who's been touched by suicide, and we'll only make progress if we're willing to start having real conversations. Just talking about these issues makes a difference. Being willing to admit that someone's down, that they're scared, that they've got somebody in their family that's facing challenges, people will know that people will be able to confront these problems and that there's a safe space to talk about them in if they know they're not alone. Improving access to mental health services, investing in critical research, and reducing the stigma associated with care is a top priority for me in Congress because it's an issue that we cannot wait on anymore. We finally pressed the FCC to create the 3-digit number to reach the suicide prevention hotline. In 2 years, you'll only need to remember 988, which is as easy to remember as 911, to reach a 24-hour day, 7 days a week hotline. This will save lives. But it also sends a message that there's nothing to be shameful about. To pick up the phone if you're in a time of crisis and you feel alone and need help. There'll always be someone to listen to, and no one ever needs to feel alone. I'll continue to press the FCC and Congress to do more, such as incorporating the ability to text this number. But we need to keep working together on so much more, and to have the dialogues about mental health issues and people's desperateness, the thought that people are thinking about suicide, including the diagnosis, the treatment, and access to care. Thank you for all that you do. And together, we can make a difference.
Thank you, Congresswoman Dingell, for those moving remarks. Today, we have the honor of recognizing some of our champions across the country who have been true unsung heroes in the suicide prevention and mental health movement. AFSP's Sandy Martin Grassroots Field Advocate of the Year Awards honors heroes who are working tirelessly to improve mental health and reduce suicide in our country. Due to their continued leadership, dedication, and support, there are signs of hope that we can achieve our ambitious goal of reducing the rate of suicide by 20% by the year 2025. Our first recipient of the Sandy Martin Grassroots Award is Mr. Ken Brown of Lake Charles, Louisiana. Ken is a current board member with the AFSP Louisiana chapter. Joining us to share some remarks on Ken's behalf is Louisiana State Representative Stephen Dwight. Ken worked closely with Representative Dwight on the Jason Flatt Act last year, which will strengthen suicide prevention in K-12 schools across Louisiana.
Hello, I'm Louisiana State Representative Stephen Dwight, representing District 35. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Ken Brown when he came to me with concerns about increased suicide deaths in Calcasieu Parish, specifically in our education system. He had ideas and concerns about how to educate not only the school personnel, but also the legislators and state officials throughout our state. He came up with the idea which was recently passed in 2019, which I was a co-author, House Bill 53. In that legislation, we directed the State Department of Education on how to train school personnel on suicide awareness and suicide prevention, and give the students an opportunity to voice their concerns and to have someone to talk to.
Our second recipient has for many years been a one-woman powerhouse on the East Coast, Mrs. Sue Mascaleras of Waldorf, Maryland. Sue serves as the advocacy chair of the AFSP Maryland chapter and is receiving the award locally from Maryland delegate Heather Bagnell.
Today I have the honor of recognizing a champion of mental health and suicide prevention and a true unsung hero, Mrs. Susan Mascaleras. We are here on behalf of the AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, Maryland chapter. I'm Heather Bagnell, delegate for District 33, a member of the Health and Government Operations Committee, and a lifelong advocate for behavioral health services and suicide prevention. I am so honored to present this award to you for your steadfast support and leadership on suicide prevention and mental health. Because of your continued leadership, support, dedication, there are signs of hope that we may actually achieve our goal of reducing suicide by 20% by 2025. You have gone above and beyond to motivate and engage your fellow AFSP Maryland chapter members in the legislative process, raising the profile of suicide prevention nationally and across the state of Maryland. As an advocacy lead for the Maryland chapter, you have been an example of the impact advocacy can make. From providing testimony and letters of support, meeting with legislators such as myself and the governor, and sharing your knowledge and passion for suicide prevention and mental health care. I'm so pleased to present you with this award, the Sandy Martin Grassroots Award for Field Advocacy of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'd like to thank, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Delegate Bagnell, for showing up here and taking time out, and also for the work that you do in the House of Delegates to raise the profile of suicide prevention and mental health awareness. Thank you. I'd like to thank the Public Policy Council for their confidence in me and honoring me with this award. I'm truly humbled. I'd also like to thank the staff at the Public Policy Office in DC. The help that you give all of us advocates in the field is truly amazing. I'd like to thank my fellow AFSP chapter, Maryland chapter board members and our area director, Kat Ulbrich. They're amazing. It's great to work with them, and we make a great team. Lastly, I'd like to to thank our field advocates who volunteer their time to share their stories with legislators on State Day and who respond when they receive action alerts from the Public Policy Office. By sharing their stories with elected officials, they put a name and a face to suicide. We cannot do this important advocacy work without their help. Thank you very much.
Congratulations once again, and thank you to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention for all the work that you do to prevent suicide.
Our final recipient for this award goes to Ms. Jennifer Preble of Helena, Montana. Jen is the current chair of the AFSP Montana Chapter Public Policy and Advocacy Committee and member of the AFSP National Public Policy Council. Presenting the award to Jen locally is Montana Representative Mary Ann Dunwell.
Today we have the honor of recognizing a champion for mental health and suicide prevention and a true unsung hero, Jennifer Preble. We're here on behalf of AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, Montana Chapter. I'm Dory Wilmoth, and I'm the chair of the Montana Chapter for AFSP, and I'm joined today by Jennifer, who's receiving our award, and by Representative Mary Ann Dunwell. Jen, we're honored to present this award to you for your leadership and impact as suicide prevention advocate on the national level and across the state of Montana. Jen is the recipient of the 2020 Sandy Martin Grassroots Field Advocate of the Year Award. And to give you a little more background on Jen, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica Hegstrom.
My name is Jess Hegstrom, and I am the Suicide Prevention Coordinator for Lewis and Clark Public Health. I've also been a volunteer for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention for several years with Jen Preble. So I'm going to say a few nice words about Jen because she's a really wonderful advocate in our community. As chair of the Montana Chapter Public Policy and Advocacy Committee, you work tirelessly as a voice for mental health and suicide prevention. As a member of the AFSP National Public Policy Council, you shared your knowledge and expertise as a licensed clinical social worker and positively influenced the council's efforts. You are passionate about improving the healthcare system and increasing access for those who struggle with their mental health and are a true embodiment of AFSP's mission to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide.
And I'm Montana State Representative Mary Ann Dunwell. We are actually here in front of the state capitol building where a lot of the legislation that Jennifer Preble worked on with many of us moved through and was passed. We are so pleased to present this award to Jennifer Preble. And please know that AFSP and the state of Montana appreciate all you have done, Jennifer, and continue to do for the cause of suicide prevention and mental health wellness. We are honored to work alongside of you as partners and colleagues and admire your advocacy. Jennifer Preble, I present you with the 2020 Sandy Martin Grassroots Field Advocate of the Year Award.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dunwell, Dory, Jess, and all of Montana, everybody, family, friends, advocates across the state and the nation for your support and recognition of this very special award. It's truly an honor. I'm shocked and have avoided this moment for as long as I possibly could. So I am very pleased, very humbled, and I look forward to many more opportunities to work alongside state representatives and senators with future suicide prevention bills. Specifically, the work in the last couple of years, we've looked to increase suicide prevention funding across the state and the nation. We've been successful in passing a requirement for all behavioral health professionals in the state of Montana to engage and learn and assess suicide prevention with the requirement of continuing education credits. We've also been successful with implementing mobile crisis units across the state as a pilot study. I look forward to many more opportunities. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
So thank you, Jennifer Preble, on behalf of AFSP and all of Montana for your hard work and advocacy for suicide prevention. Congratulations. Thank you.
On behalf of AFSP, I would like to thank Ken, Sue, and Jen for all that you have done to prevent suicide and improve mental health nationally and in your local communities. Now, we will all share some short remarks from U.S. Congressman Anthony Gonzalez.
America is being devastated by a preventable public health crisis. Center for Disease Control reports that since the turn of the century, our nation's suicide rate has climbed by over 30%, increasing significantly in nearly every corner of our country. Additional analysis shows that American teenagers have suffered the worst. Suicide rates in Americans ages 10 to 24 have jumped 56% since 2000 and nearly tripled in young teen girls. The COVID-19 will surely exacerbate these figures and make our fight more difficult. In the next few months, we are expecting suicides to increase as people get back to life and untreated anxiety comes to life. Even more of a factor will be the economy, as we know that economic difficulties have a major impact on people's mental health. To that end, I've introduced legislation alongside my friend and colleague, Ben McAdams, that directs the National Science Foundation to fund research on the science of suicide with the goal of increasing understanding of the root causes of suicide. We know there's not one factor that leads an individual to attempt to die by suicide. This legislation will help us better understand the very issue we are trying to tackle, while also challenging our existing assumptions. This legislation will help answer important questions and help us to develop better programs, services, and trainings to better prepare us in our efforts to intervene and treat those at risk. But it's only one small step. Congress and our agencies must also do more to facilitate aggressive outreach and ensure states and organizations have the necessary funding to provide 24/7 high-quality support. We must also assist every state and community in pushing the availability and quality of their suicide prevention programs. But we must recognize the limits of the government, for this problem cannot be thwarted by the government alone. Every community and every American can do more to prevent suicide. It's critical that those who are struggling know that they are not struggling alone or in silence. They know that help is available. We should not be satisfied until every child and adult who is at risk has access to the resources they need to beat this illness. Let's commit to ending suicide, not reducing it, but ending it, and figuring out what it takes. The work will not be easy, but if at least one person struggling with their mental health and thoughts of suicide decides not to act, it's time well spent. Thank you for what you do each day to combat our nation's suicide epidemic. I'm honored to work alongside you.
Thank you, Congressman Gonzalez, for those remarks, and thank you, Melissa, for presenting our Field Advocate of the Year awards. I know the public policy staff and myself are always impressed by and thankful for the work of our Sandy Martin winners and of all of our field advocates across the country. Of course, some of that work could not be done without the support of federal and state legislators as well as their staff. One way we honor those staff who have supported us over the years is through the AFSP Allies in Action Awards. At this time, I will turn it over to AFSP's Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Bob Gebbia, to present those awards.
Thank you, Chelsea. I'm honored to have the opportunity to present these awards and to be part of this event with so many of our advocates and supporters from across the country. AFSP's Allies in Action Awards honor individuals who are working tirelessly at all levels of government to improve mental health and reduce suicide in our country. This award is in recognition of long-standing and steadfast support of and leadership in suicide prevention and mental health. We have 4 awards to give out this year, and all of the recipients have had a major impact on our efforts to strengthen the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline and to improve crisis services in our country through the designation of 988 as a 3-digit call number for mental health emergencies. Our first recipient of the Allies in Action Award is Megan Axelrod. Megan is a legislative assistant in the office of U.S. Senator Cory Gardner and has worked in the U.S. Senate since 2017. During this time, she's been instrumental in promoting legislation to bring suicide prevention services and training to K-12 schools and to improving access to mental health care in rural communities. Within the office of Senator Gardner, Megan has been a leading voice for the passage of the National Suicide Hotline Designation Act and for making 988 a reality. Thank you, Megan. AFSP appreciates your leadership and that of Senator Gardner in passing the Designation Act in the Senate. Congratulations. Our second awardee is Marcus Garza. Marcus is the legislative assistant in the office of U.S. Representative Jose Serrano and has been on Capitol Hill since 2016. He's been an ally to AFSP in promoting suicide prevention legislation on Capitol Hill and has been a champion for suicide prevention funding within his office and with other congressional offices over the past 2 years. Thank you, Marcus. We have seen your efforts come to fruition with increases in suicide prevention funding in the last appropriations cycle. Congratulations. Our third recipient is Olivia Hussey. Olivia serves as a legislative assistant within the office of U.S. Representative South Moulton. As a congressional health staffer since 2017, Olivia has partnered with AFSP to introduce legislation to prioritize mental health for all Americans. Working under Representative Moulton, Olivia has been at the forefront of reducing the rate of suicide among our nation's veterans and service members, and she's been a leading champion in the designation of 988 on Capitol Hill. Thank you, Olivia, for your work and support as we continue to prioritize veteran and military suicide prevention. Congratulations. Our fourth and final 2020 Allies in Action winner is Legislative Director in the Office of U.S. Representative Chris Stewart, Mr. Cam Madsen. Cam has been a key partner for AFSP, collaborating on the 2019 National Suicide Hotline Improvement Act and the push to designate 988 as the number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Cam has also overseen the introduction of legislation to bring prevention services and training to emergency departments and health professionals across the country. Thank you, Cam. Now more than ever, we need to prioritize suicide prevention within our healthcare systems and to make sure everyone has access to care. Congratulations, Cam, and congratulations to all our 2020 award recipients. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you to this year's Allies in Action winners for your efforts and support of AFSP and suicide prevention. As a reminder to those advocates who are watching, the National Suicide Hotline Designation Act has not yet passed the House. So if you have not done so already, please reach out to your U.S. representatives through the AFSP Action Center at afsp.org/Action Center and urge them to pass this important piece of legislation before the month is up. Now we will share some remarks from a long-standing suicide prevention and veterans community supporter, U.S. Senator Kristen Sinema.
Thank you for your work raising awareness and saving lives. As a social worker, I know firsthand the importance of behavioral health. For too many Americans, mental health challenges can be isolating. People feel alone in their struggles or judged for admitting they need help. Especially during the pandemic, it's critical we get the message out. It's okay to feel anxious and scared. It's okay to ask for help. No one should have to fight their battles alone. That's why I worked to get the National Suicide Hotline Designation Act passed through the Senate, and I'm working to get it signed into law. Some communities are disproportionately impacted by suicide. Sadly, the rate of suicide in our military and veteran community is far too high. We lose an estimated 20 veterans to suicide every day. It's our responsibility to ensure our brave service members and veterans receive the support they've earned. One of those veterans was Sergeant Daniel Somers. Sergeant Somers was an Arizona Army veteran who served 2 tours in Iraq and was haunted by the war when he returned home. He suffered from PTSD and a traumatic brain injury. His isolation got worse when he transitioned to civilian life, and he didn't get the help he needed in time. On June 10th of 2013, we lost Sergeant Daniel Somers to suicide. In the wake of Daniel's death, I found inspiration in the courage demonstrated by his parents, Howard and Jean. Instead of turning inward with grief, Howard and Jean bravely shared Sergeant Somers' story and created a mission to end veteran suicide. I've had the honor of working alongside Howard and Jean Somers to strengthen access to behavioral health services. We passed into law the Daniel Somers Access to Care Act, which ensures veterans who worked in classified jobs can receive behavioral health services in appropriate care settings. And last year, our Sergeant Daniel Somers Network of Support Act became law, requiring the Defense Department to create networks of support for service members entering the military. We're working to implement a similar program at the VA. Together, we've made meaningful change. Making a difference is what you all do every day, and I'm so proud of your work. As we honor Suicide Prevention Month, I promise you all that you can continue to count on me as a partner in our struggle to end suicide.
Thank you, Senator, for your remarks and for your support of suicide prevention legislation in the U.S. Senate. Now, I would like to turn it over to Nancy Farrell to present the 2020 Perspicacity Award. Perspicacity, for those who may be unfamiliar with the term, is the quality of keen understanding, of uncommon insight into the world we live in and the issues at hand. This award was first presented to Nancy last year and seeks to honor select AFSP volunteer advocates who have become a nationally recognized resource for the suicide prevention movement. These advocates have shown outstanding dedication and influence as grassroots volunteers in promoting suicide prevention and mental health at all levels of government.
Thank you, Chelsea. I have known the two individuals receiving this award for many years because of their work on the National Public Policy Council. They truly exemplify this award. Our first recipient is well known within his home state of California for his work with AFSP, Gordon Dowdy. Gordon is a former AFSP National Public Policy Council member and San Francisco Bay Area Chapter Board member and board chair, as well as a member of the Chapter Leadership Council. Gordon has been a volunteer and supporter of AFSP since 2005 and has had a positive impact on the suicide prevention movement at every level of government. He has provided testimony and letters of support throughout the years for legislation that needed AFSP's support. In California, he was a powerful advocate over several years to expand suicide prevention training to mental health professionals, including psychologists, social workers, marriage and family therapists, and licensed and professional counselors. At the federal level, Gordon has attended every AFSP advocacy forum and become a true resource, friend, and wealth of knowledge for members of Congress and his fellow AFSP California volunteer advocates. Thank you, Gordon, for all you have done and for the impact you have had on our movement. We're happy to share a few remarks of thanks from Gordon for all of those who are joining us today.
So when I was informed that I was selected to receive this award, I actually was totally speechless. For those that know me, they know that that's a rarity because I like to talk. But like many of you, I got involved with AFSP because of a loss. We lost our Amanda in 2004. And in 2005, as part of our healing process, we got involved with the greater San Francisco Bay Area chapter of AFSP, where over time I became board member, board chair, advocacy committee chair. And I've had the honor and experience to attend several advocacy forums and, of course, our California State Capitol Day. Over the past decade, I've had the great experience to be a witness and testify before our state assembly and state senate several times, written numerous letters of support, and had the opportunity to meet with state and local elected officials. However, I discovered through this that advocacy comes about in many ways. For instance, I've served on the advisory committee for the Depression Center of Excellence at the University of California, San Francisco, the Student Mental Health Council at San Francisco State University, Contra Costa, Solano, and Napa County Suicide Prevention Councils, the Governor's Interagency Prevention Action Committee, the State Superintendent of Public Instruction's Student Mental Health Policy Work Group, and with AFSP, the California Public Policy Committee, which is comprised of 7 chapters, and AFSP's Public Policy Council. All of these associations have educated me and provided advocacy support impacting legislation. I'd like to point out two things, though, from my relationship with the Depression Center of Excellence at the University of California, San Francisco. One is that because of that relationship, we were able to get the ISP program on all 10 UC campuses and at their medical centers. And at that time, Dr. Christine Moutier was at the University of California, San Diego Medical Center. So that was one tie. And then another tie is that through that group, I also met Dr. Megan McCarthy, who I worked with for about a year. And we put together a conference, the first of its kind in the nation, on veteran suicide, firearms, and other lethal means conference, which has been replicated. And Megan went on to become deputy director of the VA's suicide prevention effort and is now at AFSP, quite proud of her, doing the effort on 20 by 2025. Over the past 15 years, the three most rewarding legislative activities that I've been involved in was our 3-year effort to require those licensed by the California Board of Psychology. This was our Assembly Bill 89 in 2017, and the California Board of Behavioral Sciences, which was Assembly Bill 1436 in 2018, to require as a condition of their licensure that they receive training in suicide risk assessment and intervention. Part of this effort was not only going to the board meetings and licensing committee meetings over a 3-year period, but also having them survey the universities and finding out what they taught, and also taking a look at their licensure examinations where we were able to point out the gaps that they had there. So that was quite an achievement. And then my third bill is AB 1261 here in California in 2017, which requires all 977 public school districts in California, which serves about 6.3 million students, to have a suicide prevention policy in place. And at that time, it was before the start of the next school year. So a lot of this work has come about, and I want to thank the advocacy team in Washington and also the group here in California to make my work easier. And I am greatly honored to receive this award. Thank you.
Our second Perspicacity Award winner is Rick Kirchhoff of Illinois. Rick is a current member of the AFSP National Public Policy Council, co-chair of the Illinois Chapter Board of Directors, and he serves as a volunteer field ambassador. Rick has been a true leader of AFSP's mission of saving lives and bringing hope to those affected by suicide. Over the years, Rick has served as the past chair and vice chair of the National Public Policy Council, past chair of the National Leadership Council, and as a member of the National Board of Directors and Executive Committee. Locally in Illinois, Rick served on the advisory council for the organization responsible for the development of the Illinois Violent Death Reporting System, and he served for many years as a member of the Illinois National Guard Suicide Prevention Task Force. Rick's personal philosophy is to use his time and energy to help others and pay the support and help forward, a philosophy that is clearly evident in his tireless work for AFSP. Throughout his years with the organization, Rick has shown outstanding dedication and leadership for suicide prevention and mental health policies nationally and throughout Illinois. Thank you, Rick, and we are happy to be able to share a few remarks of thanks from Rick with all of you today.
When I attended our first public policy advocacy conference, I realized that we were taking a giant step as a significant and what I would call a force multiplier from my military background for suicide prevention. I would have to say that working with the public policy has certainly required me to expand my comfort zone and work in many new areas. Locally, I became more involved with the mental health organizations in our county, and also our local suicide prevention task force. There was a time that I was making monthly trips to Springfield to support the Illinois National Guard Suicide Prevention Task Force. And I continue to work with Lake County with suicide prevention activities. So there's a lot more that I would have to say, a lot more that we can do as volunteers. It's a matter of getting out and meeting people and listening. That is I would say a key factor that I learned over the years, the ability to listen, keep my mouth shut sometimes. We're, a group of volunteers that, how with the right attitude, we can make change for ourselves and also those around us.
As a friend of both Gordon and Rick, I again want to thank you and say that working with you as leaders of the AFSP family has meant so much to me personally. I'm really honored to have the opportunity to announce your awards today. Thank you again for your unmatched dedication to AFSP and the suicide prevention movement. Before we move on to our final set of awards today, we have some remarks to share with all of you from U.S. Congressman Tom Cole of Oklahoma.
Hi, this is Congressman Tom Cole, the 4th District of Oklahoma, and I want to thank each and every one of you at the conference for gathering together to work on what's genuinely a critical problem in our country. That's the problem of suicide. We lose 48,000 Americans every year to suicide. It's the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, the 9th leading cause in my own home state of Oklahoma. And we've worked hard to try and make a difference this year. We've also, in the last few years, begun to devote significant resources at the National Institute of Health and other various agencies to provide mental health help, to look at patterns, to try and break this terrible affliction. Probably many of you have had someone in your family that's been lost to this dreadful scourge. And frankly, I have in mine. Lost my favorite uncle many years ago, and we were mystified. He was successful, he was happy, had a wonderful family, a very good life, and unbeknownst to us, there was clearly a problem, and he took his own life with a firearm when he was 80 years old. I remember how stunned I was and how many times I've asked myself, why didn't we see this coming? You're working to try and make sure that other Americans that are fighting privately with their own personal demons don't make the same tragic choice that my uncle made. So I hope the convention goes well for you. I thank you for your work. I want you to know that Congress is extraordinarily interested in what you're doing and is going to continue to try and make a significant commitment of resources so that no American and no American family ever faces this sad situation again.
Thank you, Congressman Cole, for your kind remarks. Closing out our awards today, AFSP is proud to partner with the American College of Emergency Physicians in presenting the Innovations in Suicide Prevention Awards. Presenting these awards, we have Dr. Christine Moutier, representing AFSP, and Dr. Paul Kivala, representing the American College of Emergency Physicians.
Thank you, Chelsea. These awards seek to highlight individuals in the acute care setting who are taking on the remarkable effort of developing innovative systems, models, and interventions that can improve the care of patients with suicidal ideation or behavior and show promise for saving lives when it comes to preventing suicide. Our first winner is Dr. Steven Anderson, who on behalf of the City of Auburn, Washington, Dr. Anderson and the City of Auburn are receiving this award for their creation of the READY program. In 2015, a King County Community Health Needs Assessment showed parts of South King County, including Auburn, as the most negatively impacted in the state for health, housing, and economic opportunity measures. The READY program, which is reproducible and can be customized for any community, provides information about common mental and behavioral health issues and basic tools to use in emergency mental health situations. The program fills the gap before 911 can respond and prepares participants for what to expect when they arrive at an emergency department. The READY program has been seen by over 3,000 citizens and organizations in King County and across the state. Thank you, Dr. Anderson and the City of Auburn for all you're doing to prevent suicide. We now have a few words of thanks to share with you all from Dr. Anderson.
Sincerely, I'd like to say thank you to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and the American College of Emergency Physicians, not just for this prestigious award, but since it's not about me, it's about our communities, but because it increases the visibility of the READY program that we developed in our mayor's office in Auburn, Washington. Real emergency aid depends on you. In a nutshell, it's an online 1-hour course on recognizing behavioral health crisis and how to stabilize the individual and the scene until help arrives. If you will, it's the CPR for mental health crisis. We're also proud to have built a 13-minute long intro to be taught by and performed by junior high and high school students called Teen Ready to be used in the schools. In this time of a pandemic, it's important to stress that social distancing is not the same as social isolation. One of READY's tenets is isolation is the enemy of mental health. It's all about opening up communication. The second tenet is in crisis situations, you can't say the word safe enough. So on behalf of everyone we want to keep safe in our society, I want to thank you sincerely for this award.
The second recipient of the 2020 Innovations in Suicide Prevention Award is Dr. Amy Betts, on behalf of the team behind Lock to Live, an innovative, patient-centered online tool that augments provider-delivered counseling. The Lock to Live tool helps suicidal adults and their families think through decisions and personal preferences about the storage of firearms, medications, and other potentially harmful items. The process of developing and testing the innovative Lock to Live tool contributed to the science and practice of both lethal means safety for suicide prevention and the field of decision science. We know that limiting access to lethal means when someone is in distress can save lives, making this a key tool for suicide prevention. Thank you and congratulations, Dr. Betts, and all those involved in the Lock to Live project. We would now like to share some short remarks from Dr. Betts.
I'm deeply honored to accept this award on behalf of the large team that worked with me to create Lock to Live. We wanted to make it easier for people to talk about and think about how to reduce access to guns, to medications, and to other potential methods of suicide. We know that putting time and space between someone who's at risk of suicide and a lethal method can save lives. And we hope Lock to Live will help people do that. It's an online tool. It's available free of charge at locktolive.org. Thank you to the many people who helped create it and to the National Institutes of Mental Health for their financial support of the project. Thank you to the American College of Emergency Physicians for continuing to strive for excellent care for patients across this country. And thank you to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention for your leadership and your advocacy. A young investigator grant helped start my research career many years ago. And as someone who's personally lost friends and family to suicide, I'm deeply grateful for the resources and the support that you provide to help us all heal. Thank you again.
Thank you again to both our winners today and to all of those who are doing innovative work in acute care and emergency department settings to prevent suicide. For those tuned in today, nominations for the 2021 Innovations in Suicide Prevention Award are being accepted until September 30th. And you can find more information on the Allies in Action Awards event webpage. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Moutier and Dr. Kivala, and thank you to all of today's awardees for your hard work, dedication, and support of AFSP's mission to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. On behalf of everyone at AFSP, we appreciate those who have tuned in on Facebook to join us today, and I thank you all for your advocacy and support of suicide prevention. Now, our keynote presentation. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce David Wasserman, the U.S. House Editor and Senior Election Analyst for the nonpartisan Cook Political Report. Nate Silver of ESPN's 5 for 30 website wrote, Wasserman's knowledge of the nooks and crannies of political geography